All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Mazévo Connect. My name's Brian Peck. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Mazévo. I think for a few of you that I'm seeing, this is probably your first Mazévo Connect, so welcome. And if you've been to previous Mazévo Connects, that's great as well. We do these every month. And today's topic is going to be on simplifying billing and hopefully making it a little more understandable for some people. Um, anyways, before we get to that, the way we typically do these is we'll be presenting the topic today. And while we're presenting, we do encourage questions and feedback and things like that. So you are welcome to put any questions that you have in the chat as we're going along. We'll also save some time at the end for Q&A as well. So at that point too, if you want to just unmute yourself, sometimes that's easier to ask your question verbally rather than trying to type it in the chat. Totally understand that. So feel free to do that. But that's the way these things typically go. We have everybody muted right now, but yeah, you'll be able to unmute yourself. Um, as far as announcements go right now, we just got back from a couple of higher ed conferences this month. So it was great to see, I think, some of you on this call actually in person. So it was awesome to see everybody in person. We typically only do one or two conferences a year, so it's kind of great to get out of the office and see everybody. And another thing too that I wanted to bring up today, I'm not sure everybody is aware, but we do have a YouTube channel that's out there. So if you're ever looking for some videos on Mazévo, we have a lot of training videos up there. We have all of our past Mazévo Connect webinars going all the way back for a few years that we've been doing these. So please do check that out. I'll put a link to it in the chat here in a little bit. So you can go check that out if you haven't been out there before. We also have, I recently posted a few videos on billing to our YouTube channel that would be a good addition to our topic today. So just some high level concepts that we'll be covering there. So anyways, and the last thing I wanted to mention, if you ever have any ideas for future Connect Mazévo Connect webinar topics, we would love to hear those. We're always working on, planning those. And so any ideas that you have, feel free to share those with us. So anyways, today's presenter is going to be Dean Evans, our CEO, who's on the call here. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to go through billing in Mazévo. So welcome, Dean.
All right, thanks everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to just jump right in. I got a whole lot of stuff to share with you. So today's topic, billing and invoicing, and we're going to kind of go through that from one end to the other and show you the simple stuff and the more advanced stuff as well. So with that, I'm going to jump right in and create an event. And I'm just going to do it right here from the event book. And I'll just create one here in this J Moody room. I just need to get something out here to build. So we're going to pick this Acme Industries, and we're going to pick Jasmine, and there's a minimum there in that room. This is not, we're just getting set up for the billing here. And then my new event, and we'll just give it an event type of, sure, film, lecture, speaker. Okay, and then I'm going to just save, and I'm going to open that. This is not a class on how to do the book, so it's more of a class on billing. So here I've got my one booking out here, and let me just go ahead and I'm going to add some resources to it, some catering, and then I'm going to come out here and pick some of these. I'll say 2 of those, and price per dozen. Let's get a couple dozen of those and just save those. I just want some stuff out here that we can look at. And so I've got some catering, and I've got one booking here Now, what I want to talk about is how did it get these prices? Where did these things come from? How did it get there? What's this $199 up here? Sales tax, service charge. Where did all that come from? So that's what we're going to do first is kind of show you the behind the scenes of how that gets set. And because that's really important. And then we're going to kind of dive into the invoicing. So how does all of this get set? It's really driven off of this pricing plan right here. And we're going to go look at the external pricing plan in a moment. But how did it know to put that on this event with Acme Industries? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back out here and I'm going to look at our group here called Acme Industries. And when I drill into Acme, over here is some default information. And right here is the pricing plan. So every time I create an event for Acme Industries, it's going to use a pricing plan of external, and they're going to be charged tax and service charges. So those are specific to Acme, and you can change that, organization by organization. So you can see over here, here's the student pricing plan, and there's no tax and no service charge. So those are set right here. So let's go jump in and look at that pricing plan. So in settings, we've got some things right here, and most of your invoicing options are set right here. So let's look at the pricing plan. So what is a pricing plan? Well, based upon your customers, you may charge different rates for different things. So in this case, external, I've got an external customer. I'm going to charge them for the space and for catering and for the AV. Whereas a student, I might not. I might let them use the space and there's no charges yet. They might still pay for catering. Okay. So these are my pricing plans. It's really pretty simple. If you look right here on this internal pricing plan, it's set to default to new events. So typically, you're going to default the pricing plan to whatever's on the organization. Now, if you created a new organization on the fly, it's going to get automatically set to the internal pricing plan, but you can change that. So let's take a look at the pricing. When you go under manage pricing here. So when you click on this, it's just this, it's every room in your system and every pricing plan. So if you wanted to see the external prices, you can filter this down. And so here's your external pricing plan right here. And as we scroll through, I was in the student center and I'll come down and here's that J Moody room and it's $150. So it's a unit amount. So if I click on that, I can change the pricing. This is the default pricing for the external plan. And again, your prices can change across all of these plans. It could be unit pricing on one, hourly on another. It really doesn't matter. But that's how the prices are set for the rooms. And then if you click on this tab, there are the prices for all of the resources. So if I filter this to catering, I can type. There's your catering and there's all the pricing for that. And most of the time it's unit pricing. Okay. But it doesn't have to be. You might rent projector by the hour or something like that. So anyway, that's how you set the pricing for each plan. So if I go look at the student price here, you see there's still pricing in here for catering, but the rooms are all zero. Now, there's a couple things we can talk about when we get into reporting, but you may, instead of using a price of zero, you may actually want to put a price in there and then give them 100% discount. And then that gives you the ability to see, well, how much are you giving away? You just put the price at zero, you can't ever get that, but that's a little trick that you can use there. And it also gives the customer, well, what's the value of what I'm getting? If I'm using that room, what's it worth? So in addition to pricing plans, if we come back out here, you've got service charges and taxes. We typically see service charges on catering, but you could put it on any service. But that, like a gratuity charge that you want to put on there. And taxes, simply just your sales tax. You can put in a rate there, and then you go into what's taxable and what's not. So you set a tax on the building, and you set a tax code for each service provider. And then you tell the system, is the room taxable and are the resources taxable? And that's half of the equation. The other half is the organization taxable? So the item's got to be taxable and the organization has to pay tax, and then we'll compute tax at whatever the tax rate is on the tax code. So it's kind of, there's a bunch of pieces when you start using taxes there. So we talked about the default pricing plan. It's typically set on the organization here. And we've talked about that. Okay, one last thing in configuration, sorry, is invoicing departments. This is really key in the configuration of your invoice. So what this does is it's going to tell you, well, what's the next invoice number? What's the address at the top of your invoice? It's got some printing options here that allow you to kind of configure the look and feel of your invoice when it goes out. More importantly is this filters and messages. What are you billing for? What locations, what statuses, and what service providers? And then we also can default header and footer messages. And you really want to pay attention to this little checkbox down here. If you're going to charge room charges, you clearly want to check that because that's kind of a special, unique service provider. So you put that here. It is possible that you can split the charges up by department. So if you had an AV department that wanted to do their own billing for just the AV equipment, this is what you would do. You'd come in here and say, here's my statuses. I only want AV and I'm not going to bill room charges. And this is a way that you could create an invoice just for AV on a particular event. And then you would use the other departments to grab all of the other charges. So you can have as many departments and split these charges up however you see fit. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So let's go create an invoice. So we're going to jump back into my little test event right here and open this up. And we want to create an invoice for this. One thing you can do is just click on this invoicing tab. Now you have to have the right permissions to get here. You have to have the right security roles, and then you can do your invoicing and deposits here. A note on deposits. This is money that you've received prior to the invoice. So if we've got these charges, we've got $199 worth of charges, and if you want to collect a deposit from Jasmine here before this event is held, you would grab that and you'd enter that as a deposit. Now, a deposit's automatically going to be applied to an invoice. So let's just add one here. And we'll talk more about this department here in a little bit. And I'm just going to put a $25 deposit in and hit save. And there's a $25 deposit right there. Now, to create an invoice, simply hit create invoice. And I can come in here and I pick that department if I have multiple. And then if I want to do a specific date or date range, I can do that. Otherwise, this is going to bill everything on the invoice or on this event, excuse me. You hit preview. We always like to show you things first. And here is the invoice. This is that heading information that came from the invoice department. One thing to note is when you're previewing, you don't have an invoice number assigned just yet. So again, it's preview. You could go in and make changes. So as we look at this, here's the room charge and the catering items that we had. We're charging sales tax and a service charge less the deposit. So here's the total amount right here. And then just a recap here by the service providers, the room charge and the catering are all totaled up. We're happy with that and it looks fine. We simply hit generate. Now at this point, that assigns the invoice number, creates all of the necessary data in Mazévo, and we're off and running. Now I can hit send here and I can send this to the contacts at Acme. Jasmine was our primary contact, and we could send it to the other contacts here as well. And again, just like a confirmation, you can type in here, you could, thank you, and then hit send, and off goes the invoice. So we'll hit send. An email sent, and then we'll close that up. And now you can see the invoice right here on the event and the balance due. And that $25 deposit, what's different about that is it's now been consumed by that invoice. So we show you this is the invoice that deposit has been put on. Now, if you ever need to look at an invoice, you can just open the event and click on the invoice number, and that'll pull up a preview of that invoice. And it's really easy to resend this invoice to the customer, right? Once it's been created, anybody could send this over to the customer. Typically if they haven't paid, it's like, oh, I never received it. Well, here you go. Super easy to hit that again. So that's kind of the invoice. We're going to kind of come back and play with that a little bit more. That's one way to create an invoice. The other way to create an invoice is use this create invoice function. This is actually a way that you can create invoices kind of en masse. So if you're doing billing, at the end of every week or the end of a month, whatever the period is that you're billing, this would go find all of the events that need to have a bill generated. And so you can do some special filtering here if you needed to, but I'm just going to hit search. And this is going to go find all bookings from March 1st to March 29th. And it's going to create an invoice for all of these events in a moment. Right now, we're still kind of in preview mode. And so here's all of the invoices it wants to create. If you want to see what they're going to be, you can simply click on the amount and it'll give you a preview of what that invoice looks like. And so there it is right there. Now you can hit generate here, and that'll generate that single invoice for this customer. Or you can come over here and select multiple invoices. And now when you hit generate, that's going to generate all of them simultaneously and send them out all at one time. The other option here is a billing worksheet, which is really, think of that as a preview of your invoice. So again, whatever events that you select here and you hit billing worksheet, it's going to give you a preview of each one of those. It's not going to assign a number or anything like that. You'll just get to see that in a PDF. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is this column called complete. And if we look down here, there's this chess club match and it says complete no. What that field is for, and that's telling us there are bookings outside of the billing period. So this event has not completed. Now, if we were to open up the chess club, there's actually a booking in April in the chess club. And so we told it our billing period was March. And so it's telling us kind of visually, hey, wait a minute, you haven't completed this event. Do you really want to send an invoice out for that? And again, it kind of depends upon your billing situation. If you're billing them, well, we don't care whether the event's complete because you might have an event every month. You don't want to wait until December to send an invoice. You might want to send it every month. So the completed flag is just this indicator that you can see, well, there's still future events on that one particular event, future bookings. So that's how you would create multiple invoices. I'll go ahead and do that for you here, just so you can see it all the way through. You get to pick your header and footer messages right here. And if I say generate and send, it's going to go ahead and say, well, let's type in the email. Thank you. And then who do you want to send it to? Now, in this case, since you're doing these in a big batch, you may only want to send that to the primary in the billing contacts, and it'll figure out if you have a billing contact, they'll get a copy of the invoice. You hit send, and it's going to go shoot out those 3 emails. And now it kind of shows you what it's done here. So if you wanted a PDF, some people want to store this, this document here. These are the 3 invoices that we just generated. So it comes up to this at the end. So the emails are already gone. They're on their way. The invoice numbers have all been assigned. So this is just for your records if you wanted to keep that. And then over here, you can see we've invoiced it right here. We've just got this little indicator. So if you were doing this in batches, you could come in here. If you were looking, the reason we're doing it this way is you might want to say, well, I want to do all of my external events. And if you spelled external right, you would get all of your externals. And here they are here. So that's another way if you wanted to kind of subdivide and do these in batches within that month, you could do that as well. So let's see, other things, tips and tricks here. Let me look at my little list. We've got the billing worksheet, completed flag. Okay, so now that we've done this, let's go apply a payment to this invoice, to an invoice, so you can actually record payments in the system. So let's go back to that very first invoice that I created. So here's the lecture. I go to invoicing and I've sent that one out. That's that $176 and it had the deposit. Right here's a big add payment button. When you click that, pops up, says what's your payment type. These don't really do much. It just categorizes your payment. If you pick credit card, don't get too excited. It's not going to do anything. And I would frown on you typing in a credit card number here. The system is not PCI compliant. So we limit you to 10 characters. So you might only want to put the last four, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, something like that if it was a credit card. And then down here in a note, you could put a transaction ID in or something like that. We do have a partner that can actually do the credit card processing and write this payment record in here automatically as they process credit cards. Now that is a PCI compliant application. PCI is just the security around credit cards. So if I put $120 payment in here, hit save, and now we still have a balance of $54 right here. So you can have as many payments as you want. You can add another one in here. Let's say they give you another, if you're a student group, they just chip away at it. Here's another $10. So again, you can kind of stack those up. So any of those invoices could have multiple payments on it. So that's one way to put in a payment. The other way is through a special tool called Find Invoices. Now that's not really too intuitive because it's really find invoices and payments. So you're really looking for an invoice in this particular case. We're going to come back to this tool in a minute. I'm looking for all invoices from February 1st through today, and I'm going to hit search. And these are all of the ones that were waiting to be paid. Okay. And so there's that one, my new event, and there's my $130. So you can add a payment here. So again, if you had a batch of checks or something like that, this may be an easier tool to go through and say, okay, the business office paid, boom, add payment, add payment. When you add the payment, it's the same as adding it on the event. It's just, we assume that you might want to put them all in at one time. So that's really the difference here in the payment methods. So now, when you use this find invoices, there's a couple things you can do here. It's got 4 options here. So find invoices, that's what we just looked at to put in that payment. But there's a couple of things you can do here. You can include zero balance invoices and negative invoices. So the question is, well, why would you want to do that? Well, if you're adding payments, you probably don't need to see things that have already been paid or have a negative balance, like a credit balance. But if you do, you can just check those 2 boxes and you'll see those. And I've got a couple examples here. So this particular customer overpaid right here, and then this one's paid in full. So that's what those would look like right there. Now, you can use this tool right here as an aging report, and it just by default, whenever you run find invoices, it automatically finds you all again, we check the box to see paid ones, but by default, it's not going to show you those. So these are all of your unpaid invoices, and they're in chronological order. So this is really kind of an aging report in and of itself. Now, some of the pure accounting folks probably wouldn't look at this as an aging report, but it is. It's showing you things in the order. So this one's the oldest invoice in your system, and then the newest one's down here. And again, just like anywhere else in Mazévo, you can export these to Excel and manipulate it over there if you wanted to. So that's kind of our aging report right there. So let's take a look at some of these other options. Again, this is probably for your accounting department, finance department. They'd want to know what payments did you receive over, a period of time. So here you can use those transaction dates, hit search, and these are all of the payments that have been processed in that period of time. So it's a way to focus in on that. They always like to know how much money they put in the bank account. Here's one way to do it right here. The other option you have here is deposits. And when we do, you get the same thing. I want to find all deposits that I made. So that's money that you put in the bank. You can do that right here and hit search, and it's going to show you everything there. Now, the one thing you might want to do is include applied deposits. If you're really trying to balance your checkbook, you might want to include applied deposits because those are deposits you've taken, but they've already been used. So these last two deposits were consumed on these invoices right here, if that makes sense. So, all right. And then again, just for the convenience of the accounting folks, we can put all of those deposits and payments together on one report right here. So this is what they're looking for when they look at their bank statement, trying to reconcile their bank account. They want to see all the money going in. And so that's one way. They typically would export that and play with it. So let's see, on to the next thing. So we've got the aging. I'll kind of stop there. Brian, are there any questions or anything that have come in?
Doesn't look like it so far. So
No, that's either they're overwhelmed or bored. So, all right, now we're going to go on to some reporting and show you some other ways that you can do some reporting out of here. Because again, if you're invoicing that, you're probably concerned about revenue and analytics and things like that. So, the two main reports that you'd use to see, besides this find invoices, which is more of a transaction level, would be analytics and revenue analytics. And I'll just pop in here and we'll just do that for this month. So this is going to analyze all of the charges on all of the events for this month, and it's going to collapse it down to the event level. And again, you've got some filters here. And then you've got your standard filters here. You can do it by location and things like that. And then if I hit run, I just want to show you what this looks like. And what you've got is one row in the grid for each kind of charge. So here's this Acme event right here. So that's all the same event ID. And then each charge. So they had 300 in room charges, charged them for extension cords. So these are all of the charges on all of the bookings, and they're all combined here and collapsed. The difference would be if you want to see more daily charges or booking by booking, that's this option right here by booking. And we'll just run that really quick. You'll see a lot more data here, but it's going to take that same information and break it out by room and by date. So you can see that right there. So it's a couple different ways. And again, this is showing you all of your charges. We have the concept of an account code. So this would be the revenue account that you're going to hold that revenue in. So most people, it could be a number, it could be a name. In our example here, we've got a mixture of both of those. We also use the billing code. A lot of people use that for like an internal charge code for charging back things. It could be another code that you've got right there. Now, typically that code is at the event level and it's going to be the same across all of the bookings on that event. Whereas this is going to be an account code tied to each item in here. And the account codes, I can kind of pop back over and show you how those are set up if somebody has a question on that. But again, we show here for this, either of those formats, by booking or by event, you see the gross amount, the discount, and this is how much you've given away. So here, the student center, we charged them $300 for the room charge, but we gave them a discount. So you can find the amount of things you've given away in essence, or how much you've discounted there. Your taxes and service charges are here as well. Okay, so that's revenue analytics. Kind of a more salesy approach to things would be just like high level, just collapse the revenue, would be the analytics report. And if we did that for this month, and let's say you want to find the revenue by room or maybe by organization, you want to find the revenue by customer, you can come over here and say, I want to see my total revenue, and I'll do all of my customers. Now, again, you could filter this and say, oh, I only want to see catering, or I only want to see AV, things like that. So you can add additional filters there and hit run. And then that's going to bring up each organization and their total charges for the month. Okay. So that's another way to do that. Now you can do that by organization, or you could quickly come back and change that and say, well, I want to see it by room. Which room do I generate the most money on? And it looks like the banquet hall is the leader there. You get the most money out of the banquet hall in your multi-purpose rooms. So a couple different ways to do reports. All right. What I want to do now, if that wasn't enough, I kind of want to go into a few advanced features of how can you reset a price or change prices once you've got them on there. So I've got one here, changing prices. So let's open up this event. Now this hasn't been invoiced, and there would be an indicator right here, a little green indicator. Let me go show you one that was invoiced. We just invoiced my event. So here's this little green dollar sign right here. If you hover over it, it's going to tell you the invoice number that was on. Okay, so that's kind of the difference there. So changing prices. Again, this is Acme, and they default to that external pricing plan. But let's say you needed to change that and adjust the pricing on this. Well, you change that right over here under changing the entire event cleverly on the billing tab, and then you could pick one of those other pricing plans. So if I pick let's say the student price, and I want to turn off taxes and service charge, it's just that easy to change that. Now, I changed it, and the expectation would be, well, wait a minute, why didn't the price of my room charge? So whenever you change a pricing plan, we do not wholesale go through the entire event and change prices. You have to tell us which things you want to change. And it's really simple. You probably want to change all of the bookings, and you're going to want to hit this reset price. And when you do that, that's going to change the price for the room. If you want to change the price for the resources, you would need to do the same thing over here and say, I want to reset the pricing on all of my resources. So you can do that here, and then you'll see that it's got a different price there. That's the student price. I went in there and adjusted that with a discount. So that's how you change the pricing plan and then apply that to any existing bookings and resources. There is a reason we do that, because if you've started working on an event and you've sent a confirmation out and you've already shown them the price on the confirmation, we don't want to make a mistake if you change the pricing plan and automatically change pricing, because it's like, well, you've already shown them what the price is. You don't want to accidentally change that higher or lower just by changing the plan. So we kind of make you go through one extra step to change that. The other way to change pricing is just override the pricing. It doesn't always have to come from the pricing plan. If I want to charge, just manually override the price, I can come in here for my selected bookings and I can change the price, and I can say, well, I want this to be, $100, and I want to get a 10% discount. And I can go in there and do that. And there's the net charge is 90, and now you've got your charge up here. So it's pretty easy to go in and override pricing as you see fit. And the same thing over here on a resource. If you need to change the price, you select them and change the price here. And maybe you want to get rid of the discount on that first one, you can do that. So I'm just kind of making up examples here, but that's kind of how you reset the pricing or just manually override it that way. So the other thing you can do is if you make a mistake and you need to correct an invoice. So well, that's not the one I want to, here's my invoice correction. So I've got an event here that I've invoiced, and we can go over here and we can see here's the invoice, and it's for everything. I can click on that and I can see the charges. But let's say customer calls and said, something was wrong, and I thought you were going to discount my Mexican buffet. So what you can do is you can come in here, and it could be on the booking. So you could change the room price, or it could be on resources. You can change the resource price. You could add resources if you needed to. If you forgot something, you could add them. But whatever you do, if I go in here and change the price on this last one, maybe they didn't like it on that last Friday, and you could come in here and say, you know what, we're going to give you a 50% discount because you were really unsatisfied with our service. And so there you've discounted it. Now, problem is you've already invoiced it. So how do you fix that? All you have to do is hit this regenerate, and that's going to regenerate the invoice. Now, I want you to look at the invoice number here. It's 420. And when I hit regenerate, that's actually going to get a new invoice number. It's 425. And that's it. It just regenerated the invoice. I click on that. And now we'll go to that last day on here, and we'll see that the catering was discounted, and it's $125. So then I can send that to the customer. So it's really easy to make changes and adjustments to an invoice. Now your accounting folks are going to go, what happened to my invoice 420? Well, it's still there. Don't panic. If we go to find invoices, I want to find all of my invoices, including deleted invoices. Now I'm going to make this a little smaller. I'm going to go to today. Maybe go back a day. Need a department paper, and I hit search, and then this is going to pull up the deleted invoice. So we mark it as deleted, but it's still here so that you can find it. We just kind of hide it, and you need to say, show me what it is. And so there's that invoice, and then here's the new one right here. So it's really easy to make changes after the fact to help make adjustments and things like that. Now, if you open that event back up, let's go back to that event that we invoiced. I can just click on it and open it from there. Let's see, what was I going to say there? If you totally lost my train of thought there on my invoicing. Let me go back over here, add payment. There we go. Well, I'm not sure what I was going to tell you. I got all excited about something, but it's not there. So anyway, you've got your invoicing. You can correct it. Now, there's another special situation where if you wanted to do multi-department invoicing. So let's say your AV department sends out an invoice for their services, and then all of the other charges on that event are billed on a separate invoice. So how do you do that? So I've got an event here, got a room charge, and I've got a whole bunch of resources, including a couple of AV ones. So if I go to invoicing, I've got a couple things I want to show you here in a moment, but when you create a deposit, you can actually tie a deposit to a department. So this $10 right here was tied specifically to the AV department. So how do you do that is you just pick a department as you're putting in your deposit, and then that will only be used when you invoice things for the AV department. It will not be picked up on any other departmental invoice. So that way you can have deposits going across multiple departments there. So if I come in and I create an invoice now, again, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to pick my AV department and say preview. And that's going to pull up that invoice, and it's only going to have my AV items on it. And there's my $10 deposit. Now, if I did that same thing and I picked the other main department here and hit preview, now this one actually is going to pick up all of the charges. That's just the way that we've got this test configured. Normally, you would not have AV on this one, but if you wanted, you could. Again, that's all built on that invoicing department and how you, what services you're going to include on there. So now this one has got the $25 deposit on it because we didn't specify the AV department. So this one gets excluded for that particular purpose. So that's how you can do multiple departments. You're going to have to generate more than one invoice, which kind of brings up another point. One event can have as many invoices on it as you want. So let's say you have an event that's every week for 6 months, and you build that monthly, you would end up having 6 different invoices based upon those date ranges. So you can very easily do that right here, but you would then start using the specific dates and say, well, I want to bill for March or I want to bill for April. So you can kind of divvy things up in that particular fashion. So,
Hey, Dean.
yep.
There was a question here about when you regenerated that invoice. Frank was asking if the old invoice that got voided out references the regenerated invoice.
No. No, it does not, but it's tied to the event. Good question.
Yeah.
But we don't tie them together.
Okay.
So
Follow-up question to that then was, will deleted invoices remain in the system to reference at a later date?
that's a yes. That's over here under find invoices. So if you're looking for those, you would need to use this include deleted, and that's how you would find those. So they're still in the system. That's the one I deleted or regenerated. So yes, they're absolutely stored there in the system. Kind of tucked out of the way, but they're there. So okay.
Gotcha.
The last thing, is there any more questions there, Brian? I'm just about to.
Yeah, go ahead and wrap that up and then we'll jump into the Q&A.
Okay. The last thing is security. There are 2 security roles that kind of dictate all of your invoicing. The billing administrator has access to set the pricing plans and the taxes and service charges. So that's one role, billing administrator. And then there's an actual invoicing role that allows you to run anything over here, like find invoices and create invoices. So you could separate those if you want to let somebody create an invoice but not change your pricing. So there's really 2 roles for that to do that. Now, as a global administrator, you automatically get that, but that's about all I had. So we want to open it up for questions.
Excellent.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There was one more question from Dana.
Yes.
Is there any way to rearrange the charges on invoices to appear as EMS used to appear for us? having the grand total as the last dollar item shown would be much clearer than those summary items.
Currently, there is not a way to do that. I think what you're referring to is, let me go show that invoice. If I right here, you want this room charge and catering to appear above the total. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's not a way to do that. You can suppress these and just turn them off and they can go away. And that's an option under the invoicing department to do that. But we just kind of put it down here as a summary. So.
All right. I don't see any other questions out there. And feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask your question that way or type it into the chat.
I have a question about deposits.
Sure.
Deposit would seem to be a transaction. Is there a type of settlement report that could be run, like at the end of the day, to capture all deposits or all transactions?
We would typically think that this find invoices would do that. You could come in here. Now, again, if it's more than just deposits, you'd probably choose this option here, and then you're going to say, well, I only want to run it for today. Okay. And you invoice today, you might want to do that, but here's all of the payments and deposits you receive for today. Is that close?
It is, but I think when you enter a deposit, the person who's entering it can change the date. Is that correct? So it's not necessarily specific to the date.
Yeah, that's true. It's not looking at date added, it's the date that you put on the transaction. No, we don't have that, but we could certainly look at adding that to where you could say, I want to look at the date added. So, but yeah, we could look at that. I mean, we've got it, it's just not here. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
I was going to add one thing too. I'll put this in the chat as well. When was this? This was about a year ago or so. We had, if you want to see what billing kind of looks like or hear about it from a customer's point of view, we did a Mazévo Connect webinar about a year ago or so, where we had a large school district in Oregon and the University of Iowa talk about how they use Mazévo to do billing. So that might, if you're interested in hearing more from a customer's perspective, that would be a great webinar to check out. I will put that link in the chat as well, so you can see that if you want to. There we go. Yeah, so let's see. It's not looking like there's any other questions here at the moment. If there aren't, I was going to let everybody know as well. We are planning already April's webinar for Mazévo Connect, and that one's going to be on the public-facing calendar, or how you let people know about the events that are taking place in your organization, whatever that is. And we'll be going through some of the features of the Mazévo public calendar and the things that you can do to help publicize your events or let people know what you have happening. So I'll be getting that posted here relatively shortly, probably in the next few days. And so keep your eyes open for that. But yeah, if there aren't any other questions, we'll let everybody go early. It is Friday after all, so you probably have stuff to wrap up there. We do thank everybody for their participation today. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.